Coming up on In Your Neighborhood, we'll take an in-depth look at Sunbury's flood control system. We'll show you what's inside the pumping stations, and we'll tell you how they've kept the wall in such great shape for the past 70 plus years.
Hello everybody, I'm Carl Bauer. Join me as we sit down with some local sports legends of the past. From state champions to gold medalists, we catch up and find out whatever happened to those fantastic local athletes. Join me every Monday at 2 and 6 p.m. for Catching Up with Carl, only on Service Electric Cablevision, channel 508 HD.
This is To New Beginnings.
Showtime, the groundbreaking network, is reaching new heights with original series from Paramount Plus.
So be ready.
Paramount Plus with Showtime.
Here we come.
We want to be partners in this all the way.
Paramount Plus with Showtime. Available now.
Welcome to In Your Neighborhood. I'm your host, Chris O'Rourke, and we're coming to you from Sunbury's Flood Control Office, which sits up in the city's hill section because somebody had the brilliant idea back in the early 2000s to move the headquarters for the city's Flood Control Office out of the flood zone, which is where we sit now. Interestingly enough, this is one of the few changes that have been made to the flood control system since the 50s. When it comes to iconic pictures from the history of the central Susquehanna Valley, in my humble opinion, none are more memorable than this one. The Susquehanna River at the top of the flood wall in Sunbury during the Agnes floods in 1972. The beloved wall saved the city from utter devastation, and the city showed its appreciation back then and not too long ago, with the same two women, Kate Houlihan and Donna Ross, posing in front of it. What we've since learned is that it wasn't just the wall that saved Sunbury, it was the failure of Wilkes-Barre's system that spread the floodwaters out up there, keeping levels to the south lower than what they would have been. In fact, the next time you go to the city, check out the Hotel Edison. You'll see that mark on the building. That's how high the water got in 1936, which turned out to be the inspiration for the city's current flood protection system. The interesting thing is that if the wall hadn't been there, then the next picture shows water levels from the various high water events over the years, including Agnes, with the water reaching the second floor of most buildings and houses in 1972.
Sunbury's flood control system is a federally built project, which means the federal government still owns it and they build it. The construction took place from 1948 to 1952. In 1952, the city of Sunbury assumed responsibility for it, which means they signed agreements that maintenance and upkeep and running of it is the city of Sunbury's responsibility. 1993, the city realized it's such a large project they just did not have the resources and the money to maintain it properly. The state was in a terrible condition. It was falling apart by 1993. So the city worked out a deal with, whatever you want to call it, a deal, whatever you want to call it, an agreement with the municipal authority to take over operations and maintenance of Sunbury's flood control system. And the reason that was done because we can implement a pay schedule for each individual homeowner in Sunbury for flood protection. So when you get your water and sewer bill, you also get a flood control fee. And that allowed us in the last 35 years now to generate income for this, to upgrade it and maintain it properly.
At the time, 5 pumping stations were built, along with 2.5 miles of the wall and 2.5 miles of levees. A 6th pumping station was added in 1977 in what was determined to be a necessary spot. It really is a marvel, the engineering that took place to build a system that would still be relevant and in working order decades later. At the time, they looked at systems as close as Williamsport and as far away as New York State to see what worked and what didn't. The price tag for the Sunbury Flood Control Project at the time was $6 million, and it has paid for itself many times over, preventing upwards of $144 million in damages over the years, and currently protecting an estimated $1 billion in properties. Since that time, it's been all about upkeep, making sure that the first line of defense is ready to answer the call. Lewis likens himself and his 2 other full-time employees to firefighters, not always battling flooding, but training and maintaining for when the time comes. That includes keeping these 6 pumping stations in tip-top shape. They use pumps that were made years ago, but certainly fall under the category of they don't make them like that anymore. Lewis took us to their largest station and even started up one of the pumps.
This is Spring Run Pump Station. This is our largest pump station. This handles approximately 40 to 46% of the stormwater flows that comes into the city. It also handles the sewer effluent water, the treated water that they send back out.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, during high water events, it needs to be pumped out, so it runs through this station.
So we got 2 pumpers in here?
Yep, well, there's actually 3. There's a small intermediate right there, and then you have these are the larger ones. They each pump 47,500 gallons per minute. So once you get them running, you can get them both running, get that running, when you get a lot of high water head on it, like water coming in, you can probably get 125,000 gallons per minute out of all these running at a time. I'll start one so you can hear it. And these are actually on this is one of the systems where if that one will kick in first. If that can't handle it, then this one can handle it. So you have both of them running. If this one cannot handle it, then all 3 of them will be running at one time. And we've had that happen one time, 2003 or 2004. All 3 of them were running, and I'm out there at the waterway just watching the water rise up. There's not a thing we could do, except because of all of our technology that we have and the way we're able to monitor everything, we could see the storm was going to be stopping within 10, 15 minutes. You know, if not, it would have been like, what would you do? It's very unnerving to sit there and watch all these run. You're doing everything you possibly can, and the water's still getting higher. Yeah. So this one will start right here. When I stop this, these things are so well balanced that'll run for 15 minutes till it stops.
And then we took a run up to this station's sibling at the north end of Shikellamy Avenue. This one is interesting for a number of reasons. First, the pumps are so massive that when the station was built, it was built around them. Second, this station has the only diesel pump. Lewis concedes that one of the problems with their pumping system is that every pump but one runs off electricity. So if they have a power outage during a high water event, there could be trouble. The problem is the cost of finding a generating system that can run these older pumps that operate with a unique high voltage. And as you would guess, that would come with a hefty price tag. An estimate from several years ago for just one of the stations was $800,000. So they do have this one diesel generator here, and Jeff offered to run it for us. Which brings us to the third interesting thing. It is very loud, to the point that Jeff and I had to don protective ear gear. Take a listen. Yep, jet engine quality, which you could certainly hear even with the ear gear. So the fifth interesting thing is that when Jeff turned it on, the pumper created such a tremendous pull that a manhole cover inside the building was shaking. And this happens even when you turn it off. The sixth interesting thing is what happens outside. As the pumper pulls water through the system and to the gates on the other side of the levee here, water explodes out. If there was enough water, it would eventually run to the Susquehanna, but we didn't run the pump enough to accomplish that feat. The final interesting thing is what you see behind Jeff and I in this shot, a standing pool, which works in concert with one at the south end. Jeff told us about the urban legend that there is a train car at the bottom of it. He said specs he has seen even make reference to the fact that there may be one there. The thing about the pumping stations is that they don't only kick on when the water is lapping at the flood wall. They will spring to life to deal with storm waters caused by heavy rains. Now it may just be one that ramps up, but when gravity is having a hard time emptying out the bowl that Sunbury becomes with heavy rain, the pumps are there to help. So when I was out shooting video along the river the Friday before we interviewed Jeff, when it was just below 22 feet, all of the pumping stations were probably operating. So when the river is at 19 feet, if you're near any of these 6 stations, you'll hear them spring to life. Hopefully, not that diesel one, because that was crazy loud. When we come back, we'll tell you how Jeff and the city's flood control office keep an eye out for trouble and how they stay on top of maintenance for the wall and levees.
What is Plume? Plume spreads Wi-Fi across your entire home. Pods plug straight into the wall. No messy cables. They spread the internet from your existing modem to every corner of your home at full speed. Plume doesn't just make your Wi-Fi faster. It intelligently adapts to your environment and manages your Wi-Fi 24/7 based on insights like the number and types of devices you have connected. Plume. Worry-free Wi-Fi.
There are a lot of avenues you can take to market your business. but one easy choice to make. The SECV8 Community Bulletin Board is an inexpensive way for you to get directly into the homes of the potential customers you want to reach. The Community Bulletin Board costs $6 a day and can reach up to 54,000 households. You can find out more by heading to secv8.com.
You guys go up there and have one hell of a season.
That's the biggest nugget in Gold Rush history.
New Gold Rush Whitewater, Fridays at 8 on Discovery.
Here's the thing about the river and flooding, though. While we have seen more than our share of river flooding since the 120 to 130 year flood that Agnes was back in '72, it has been pretty quiet since 2011. We've had some heavy rain events that have caused the river to rise, like this Friday in April when I was out, but nothing to write home about. And as Lewis is quick to point out, the river isn't usually their first concern.
So when do you start to take steps? At what level does the river have? And is it basically river based, or do you also watch creeks as well?
Creeks. Because almost every storm I've experienced the last 30 some years is we have to monitor Schmoken Creek first. That's, because Sunbury's surrounded by Susquehanna River on one side, Schmoken Creek on the other side, and then what's called Spring Run, and right in the middle, where that's 46% of the internal flow flows through Spring Run. So we have to monitor all them. Schmoken Creek, though, we have the flash flooding problems. Schmoken Creek and Little Schmoken Creek, we have those problems. So typically, we're monitoring when we get these heavy rains in, like in 2011. We're not focused on the river yet, because right now we're focused on Schmoken Creek because there was such an intense rain, we had to watch that. And then we put in the one closure structure, which is the temporary closure across Route 61 to protect this water from incoming. So we have to do that first, and that's what we focus on. Once we get that in, then we can focus on the whole picture of Susquehanna River, and that's usually, a slower time to come up.
If you walk into the main room at the Sunbury Flood Control Office, one of the things that catches your eye is the wall monitor that shows the current levels of the river, along with Schmoken Creek, Little Schmoken Creek, and Spring Run. It's part of an enhanced system that includes satellites that track the weather so that they're ready for anything that Mother Nature may spring on them. It's also one of the features that the municipal authority realized it was sorely lacking when it took over a rapidly deteriorating flood control system from the city back in 1993.
And actually, when we took over the system in '93, it went to over 27 feet. And at the time, that kind of woke us up. That woke us up, the flood of '93, because we realized how laxed we were, how limited we were in our resources to monitor the levee or the water system, the water rate of the rise and all that. We had no way. We were actually out putting sticks in the edge of the water, and we come back an hour later and watch how much it came up and stuff like that. Yeah. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So '93 is what got us motivated to step up and really make sure we're able to operate properly at all levels. And since then we've put over, I think it was like over $9 million worth of grants that we've gotten so far that we put into the system to operate properly. And one of the first things we realized was, after that '93 event, we need something to be able to monitor the water levels, because that's our whole system operates off of, water levels.
So the water level they watch for with the river is 26 feet. Once the Susquehanna River hits that level, the Flood Control Office begins its by-the-book response. The various steps and stages that this book includes are something you can follow by visiting their website. You'll first notice that they actually start doing stuff at 12 feet, but it's at 26 feet that they start to man the Flood Control Office Operations Center 24 hours a day. And then at 27 feet, they begin the next step.
We'll have 2 crews out of 2, and what they do is we have these little Suzuki or Yamaha mules, and they have lights on, and then there's 2 guys that are just constantly, just 2 guys in each of these vehicles, and they just circle continuously where they're monitoring pump stations. We have tow drainage, which is where you're never going to stop the water from coming into the system completely, because you just don't have that. What you have is, you might see like Sunbury's flood wall, but the concrete only goes down 4 feet. So then from there, you have what's called interlocking pilings that are driven down to the bedrock. So the water is going to leak through those interlocking pilings. But there's something in place to catch that water. So what they have to do then too is they'll pull up every manhole, lift every gate where these tow drains drain into, and monitor that. What type of flow is it? How much is flowing? Is it dirty? If it's dirty, we have something going on. We need to kind of monitor that area closely, because what that means is it's pulling solids with it. It's pulling dirt and stuff with it. And if it does that, that means you get the instability of the wall then. Right. So they're constantly out doing, so if in theory how it should work is if the 2-man crew is on the north end, the 2-man should be in the south end, and as they go east and west, they should just constantly be every 20 minutes. It's important to do that, because anything could happen at any moment's notice.
And that certainly seems to have been the case in the past. Lewis has been with the Flood Control Office for 32 years, and not only calls upon that experience to determine how to handle situations, but his work has certainly led to plenty of experiences in the form of stories about dealing with floods. First in 1996.
96 was an odd one.
Yeah, that was strange.
We were sitting at our old operations center, our old emergency center, and we come in. We are connected to a satellite weather information, it's Emergency Manager's Weather Information Network, and we get all these reports in the morning. We're sitting there like a normal day, coming in and just kind of doing our thing, taking our weather readings and stuff, and the reports coming in over the weather wire were 3/4 bank full and stuff like that, like no big deal. Our water company, who is also part of the municipal authority, calls us up and say, hey, we just got an 8-foot wall of water coming down right beside our building. We're evacuating, and it's like, what the heck? So that just started. Wow. Yeah, in 96. Next thing you know, it went up to 30-some feet and put us in activation mode.
And then there was 2011.
I remember sitting at the pump station, and the top of Sunbury's flood protection is like 35, 36 feet. And I'm sitting there, I got a call from Greg on the radio, and he said, we just got the first river prediction at 37.5 feet. I mean, I just dropped, because what do you do? That's a foot over the wall, you know? Yeah. Thank goodness they lowered it.
Right. Wow, yeah, what would you do? I mean, there's nothing you can do.
No. Then it comes into the role of, your county EMA and your city EMA, you just start evacuating, and we'll do what we can to keep the pumps running. We'll just turn them on, just let them run, and hope for the best that we don't lose power and they still might work.
In the meantime, they do stay very proactive with their maintenance. The wall is made up of 500 individual pieces, and in between each piece is a copper water stop. And they also have to caulk between each piece, and Lewis says it usually ends up being about 6 miles of caulking until they're done with that task. If there's any cracking in the wall, they'll grind it out and caulk it. Jeff says in its present state, the wall could easily last another 50 years. It's what's beneath it that may be a bit of a problem. You heard Jeff talk about the wall, the pilings, and the tow drainage system. And unfortunately, that drainage system is in a state of collapse. And Lewis and the municipal authority are working with local, state, and federal legislators, along with PEMA and FEMA, to get the $3.6 million in funds to fix it. The other thing they've been focused on is the 2.5 miles of levees, and they have come up with a very interesting way of maintaining them. One that will sound very familiar to anyone who tries to keep their lawn in top-notch shape.
The levee itself is just a grass levee. And in '96, after that flood event, we had all that ice coming down. When the water went down, a certain part of the levee, we lost 1.5 feet. It just got scoured away and all that stuff. Never really thought about it anymore until about 5 or 6 years ago. Actually, about 10 years ago, we got 2 new employees because the other 2 kind of retired at the same time. And it was nice. They brought in new, fresh blood and stuff like that. And, you know, I've always preached this, that the first line of defense, we always got to make sure we have our first line of defense in, you know, that we can protect it from at least coming in. And we started looking at the levee as like, you know, what do? Like, we don't really do anything. We just let it grow. So we started looking at it. And if you look at, and I'm not picking on other levees, but if you look at other levees, you'll see like bare spots and like grass that's like not even grass anymore. It's just weeds growing, so you have all those bare spots underneath. So the way we look at it is the water comes up, same thing could happen like in '96, just gonna wash that away without any kind of protection on it. So what we do now, we spend a lot of money on fertilizer. We fertilize it. Like that's what they were just doing last week, the beginning of this week. They were taking out fertilizer, and we have 175 acres that we fertilize. We do 4 different applications that we do. We also aerate. We have an aerator that we go through and we aerate it in the fall. We put lime on it. We, in July, I know Williamsport was telling us years ago, they had a problem with grubs, which are beetle larvae, just ate all the grass away. So we started doing that in July now. We put down a pesticide to, you know, protect from the grubs and stuff like that. We don't have these issues. Our first line of defense. Now our grass is like, we don't have any of the weeds growing up. It's a solid, and what we're trying to do is establish good root growth of the grass. So, you know, we've already tested to see what it is. We got 5-6 inches of grass of roots now in which is our first line of defense. We'll protect the community and protect the floods or the levee from failing.
That gives it structure. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Structure, strength. You know, it will resist erosion.
Right.
You know, those kind of things.
Okay.
The other amazing thing about this system is that they accomplish much with a fairly meager budget. As Jeff said, because they're part of the municipal authority, they are able to bill each and every Sunbury resident for flood control. Lewis said he pays $8 a month, and that contributes to an operating budget of $650,000 a year. So certainly not millions and millions of dollars. And in a pat on the back for city residents, Lewis points out that no one complains about it because they understand its value. He pointed across the street from his office to a home and told us that the resident there is well above the floodplain, but has never uttered a word about having to pay a fee to help those who live in areas protected by the system. Here's a fun fact for you. Sunbury's flood control system is so well known and so well regarded that representatives from Holland, you know, the country with all the levees, they came over to tour Sunbury's system. Well, we certainly hold your opinion in the highest of regards. See what I did there? Send us an email on a segment at IYN@SECV8.com or stop by our Facebook page. And that's going to do it for us. I'm your host, Chris O'Rourke. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next time, maybe from in your neighborhood.